I changed the locks at midnight, not out of fear, but out of clarity. My name is Amy Carter, and 3 nights ago, I received a text message that ended a 3-year relationship in 5 words. Don't wait up. Sleeping at Tessa's tonight. No explanation, no apology, just a casual heads up that my boyfriend was spending the night at another woman's apartment. Most people would have cried, screamed, maybe even begged for answers. But something in me went cold. Ice cold. By the time he realized what he'd done, all 8 boxes of his belongings were stacked outside her door with a note that read, "His belongings. He's yours now." This is the story of how I stopped being the woman waiting for him and became the woman he'd regret losing. And if you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, you'll understand why I didn't wait up. Until that Thursday night, I thought I knew what stability felt like. At 28 years old, I had what most people would call a simple, steady life. A small apartment in Denver, Colorado, a decent job in marketing that kept me sane, and a boyfriend I trusted with my whole heart. His name was Adam, and for almost 3 years, he had been my home. Not just a partner, but the person I thought I'd build a future with. Adam was charming in that effortless way that made strangers like him instantly. Warm smile, easy jokes, the kind of man who'd pull your chair out at a restaurant just because that's what gentlemen do. Or at least, that's what I believed. We met at a friend's birthday dinner on a cold November evening. I remember how his laugh cut through the noise of the crowded restaurant like sunlight breaking through clouds. Within months, we were inseparable. Morning coffees at our favorite cafe on Larimer Street, weekend road trips to the mountains, the shared toothbrush holder in my bathroom. All the small, ordinary things that build a quiet kind of love. The kind you don't question because it feels so natural, so right. 8 months ago, Adam moved in. It felt like the logical next step. We split the rent, though I ended up covering most of the groceries and utilities since he said he was saving up for a promotion at work. I didn't mind. That's what partners do, right? You support each other until the balance evens out. You make sacrifices because you believe in the future you're building together. At least that's what I told myself every time I checked the bank account and saw my savings shrinking while his seemed untouched. But lately, something had shifted. It started small. Adam began coming home later and later, his excuses growing thinner with each passing week. Working on a late pitch with the team. Just grabbing drinks with coworkers to celebrate the quarterly results. He'd walk through the door smelling faintly of perfume that wasn't mine, a scent I didn't recognize but tried not to overthink. When I'd ask about his day, his answers became vague, distracted, like his mind was somewhere else, entirely. Somewhere I wasn't invited. I tried not to be that girlfriend. The paranoid one. The one who checks phones and demands explanations for every little thing. I told myself I was being understanding, mature, giving him space because that's what healthy relationships require. But deep down, in that place we don't like to acknowledge, I knew. I knew something was wrong. I just didn't want to face it. Because facing it meant admitting that the life I'd built, the future I'd imagined, might all be a lie. There were signs I ignored. The way he'd angle his phone away from me when texting. The sudden interest in going to the gym 5 times a week when he'd barely worked out before. The new cologne he bought without telling me. Something expensive and sharp that replaced the familiar scent I used to love. His sister even mentioned at Sunday dinner once, completely casually, that Adam had been talking about someone named Tessa a lot lately. "She sounds really cool," she'd said, smiling. I'd smiled back, pretending it didn't feel like a knife twisting in my chest. Tessa. His coworker, the one who always lingered too close during after-work drinks, according to the few times I'd joined them. The one who'd posted a photo on Instagram with Adam at some company event, caption reading, "My favorite teammate," with a heart emoji. When I'd asked him about it, he'd laughed it off. "She's just friendly like that with everyone," he'd said. And I'd believed him, because I wanted to, because the alternative was too painful to consider. Until that Thursday night, when belief wasn't enough anymore. When a single text message shattered everything I'd convinced myself was real. I was standing in the kitchen cutting vegetables for dinner. It was 8:52 in the evening, and the apartment was quiet except for the low hum of the refrigerator. I remember glancing at the clock on the microwave. feeling that familiar mix of worry and frustration because Adam was already an hour late. Again. I'd stopped texting to ask where he was because his responses had become so dismissive. On my way. Almost there. Promises that stretched into hours. Then my phone buzzed on the counter. A single text message. I picked it up, expecting another vague excuse, another empty apology. Instead, I read 5 words that changed everything. Don't wait up. Sleeping at Tessa's tonight. I froze. The knife in my hand hovered over a half-cut carrot. I stared at the screen, rereading the message as if I'd somehow misunderstood it. But there was no misunderstanding. No emojis to soften the blow. No explanation to justify it. Just a cold, casual statement delivered like he was informing me he'd be home late from work. For a few seconds, everything around me went silent. The knife, the vegetables, the soft yellow light of the kitchen, it all suddenly felt unreal, like a scene from someone else's life. Then something inside me shifted. Not sadness, not anger, something colder, something final. The Amy who used to cry over small arguments, who second-guessed herself to keep the peace, who apologized even when she wasn't wrong, that Amy went silent. In her place stood someone else. Someone steady, certain, and utterly done. I typed back slowly, deliberately. Thanks for letting me know. No punctuation, no emotion, just words. And in that small act, I reclaimed a piece of myself I'd been giving away for too long. I turned off the stove. The vegetables had started to burn at the edges, smoke curling up from the pan. The smell was bitter and sharp, fitting. I wiped my hands on a dish towel, walked to the bedroom, and opened the closet. His clothes stared back at me. Crisp button-down shirts for work, hoodies he'd wear on lazy Sundays, the gray sweater I used to borrow on cold nights. It was strange how ordinary betrayal looked in fabric form. I grabbed an empty moving box from under the bed, leftover from when he'd moved in 8 months earlier. One by one, I started folding. Carefully. Methodically. The first shirt, then another, then another. My movements were calm, almost meditative. Every crease I smoothed out felt like reclaiming a small piece of dignity he'd stolen from me. As I packed, memories flashed through my mind like a cruel slideshow. His laughter during our first road trip to Rocky Mountain National Park. The way he'd say, "I love you," half asleep. His voice thick and drowsy. His promise, whispered one night under the stars, that we were building something real. Each memory stung like salt in an open wound, but I kept folding. By 10:15, the closet was bare. By 10:30, the dresser was empty. By 11 o'clock, the last box was taped shut. 8 boxes total. His entire wardrobe, his shoes, his cologne collection, even his favorite mug that said "Best Boyfriend Ever" in bold letters. I stacked them neatly by the front door, a monument to 3 years of misplaced trust. Then a thought came to me, quiet and electric. He said he was sleeping at Tessa's, so that's exactly where his belongings should be. By 11:20, I was carrying the first box to my car. Trip after trip, I loaded everything into the trunk and back seat. The cold October air stung my skin, and the Denver city lights blurred past as I drove across town. Tessa lived only 15 minutes away in a modern apartment complex near downtown. Cream-colored brick, tiny balconies lined with potted plants. I remembered the address from a holiday card Adam had accidentally left open on the kitchen counter months ago. As fate would have it, someone was leaving the building just as I pulled up. I slipped through the open door before it closed, my arms full of boxes. The elevator hummed quietly as it climbed to the 3rd floor. Apartment 304. I could hear laughter echoing faintly behind the door. A woman's voice, light and familiar. His voice, too, that easy charm I used to find so attractive. I stacked the boxes neatly outside her door. 8 in total, one on top of the other, perfectly balanced. And on the very top, I placed a small note written on the back of a grocery receipt. His belongings. He's yours now. Amy. I stepped back and looked at the tower of boxes, a monument to every lie I'd believed. Then I took a photo. Not for revenge. For proof. Proof that I had finally acted instead of waiting. As I walked back to my car, I expected my heart to race. It didn't. It slowed, calmer with each step. The cool night air filled my lungs, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe fully. By midnight, I was home again. The apartment felt different. Emptier, yes, but also lighter. The bed was half empty. The air quiet. I changed the locks that night, $160 for same-day service from a 24-hour locksmith, worth every single cent. At 12:47 in the morning, my phone lit up. "Where are my things?" Another message came through seconds later, then another. By 1 o'clock, he was calling. By 4 in the morning, the panic in his messages was almost palpable. I let it ring, because the moment I'd read that first text, "Sleeping at Tessa's tonight," I'd stopped being the woman waiting for him and started becoming the woman he'd regret losing. When my phone finally stopped buzzing at 4:27, the silence that followed felt heavier than the noise. I sat on the couch in the half-darkness, wrapped in my old blanket, watching the screen light up and fade again. 27 missed calls, 42 unread messages, all from Adam. The last one just said, "Amy, what did you do?" For a while, I didn't reply. I just stared at those words, the small blue bubbles on my screen, thinking how strange it was that someone who used to whisper, "I love you," could sound so small, so desperate. By sunrise, exhaustion settled over me like fog. I took a shower, brewed strong coffee, and opened the curtains. Outside, Denver was waking up. Commuters rushing to catch buses, dogs being walked, sunlight catching on windows and turning them gold. The world kept turning, completely unaware that mine had collapsed 12 hours earlier. At 7:30, my phone rang again. I almost ignored it until I saw the name. Diana, Adam's mother. For a second, I hesitated. Diana had always liked me, or so I thought. She told me once at Thanksgiving dinner, "You're the best thing that ever happened to my son." But as soon as I answered, her tone cut like glass. "Amy, what on earth did you do?" she snapped. I took a sip of my coffee, letting the silence stretch. "Good morning to you too, Diana." "Don't get smart with me," she said. "Adam showed up here at 3 in the morning without any of his things. He said you threw him out." I kept my voice even, calm. "I didn't throw him out, Diana. He texted me that he was staying at Tessa's, so I helped him move." There was a sharp inhale on her end. "That's not funny." I wasn't joking. "You can't just put someone's belongings outside like that," she continued, her voice rising. "He's your boyfriend." "Correction," I said softly. "Was." The line went silent except for the faint hum of static. Then her voice softened, taking on that maternal tone mothers use when they think they're being wise. "Amy, honey, he made a mistake. You two have been together for years. Don't destroy something real over a misunderstanding." A misunderstanding. That word echoed in my chest like a cruel joke. I closed my eyes, remembering the exact phrasing of his text. There was no misunderstanding in "Don't wait up, sleeping at Tessa's tonight." "Diana," I said, my voice calm but final. "Your son made a choice. I'm just respecting it." She started to say something else, but I hung up. I didn't owe her an explanation. Not anymore. When I got to work later that morning, the exhaustion was still clinging to me like smoke. My coworker Mia noticed immediately. "Rough night?" she asked, handing me a coffee refill from the break room. I forced a small smile. You could say that. But the truth was written all over my face, dark circles under my eyes, the hollow look of someone who hadn't slept. She didn't push, and for that, I was grateful. Around noon, a message popped up on my phone, this time from an unknown number. When I opened it, my stomach dropped. "You've really ruined his life. I hope you're proud of yourself." It was Tessa. I stared at the message for a long moment before typing back. "He ruined his own life, Tessa, and if you're smart, you'll stay out of this before he ruins yours too." I hit send and blocked the number immediately. That afternoon, I tried to focus on work, but my mind kept drifting. Around 4 o'clock, my manager called me into her office. I thought maybe someone had complained, maybe Adam had caused a scene. But instead, she closed the door gently and said, "Mia told me you're going through something. If you need a few days, take them." Her kindness almost broke me. I nodded, blinking back tears I refused to let fall. When I left the building that evening, I saw him, Adam, leaning against a car in the parking lot, waiting. My heart slammed against my ribs, but I kept walking. He stepped forward. "Amy, please, can we just talk?" I didn't stop. I didn't even look at him. "There's nothing left to say, Adam." "I made a mistake," he called after me. "Just give me 5 minutes." I kept walking toward my car, keys already in hand. Adam's voice followed me across the parking lot, growing more desperate with each step I took, so... "Amy, come on. You're being unreasonable." Unreasonable. That word made something inside me snap. I turned around slowly, facing him for the first time. He looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, wrinkled shirt, hair uncombed. Good. "Unreasonable?" I said quietly. "You texted me you were spending the night at another woman's place like you were informing me you'd be late for dinner. And I'm unreasonable?" He ran a hand through his hair, that gesture he always used when he was trying to seem vulnerable. "It wasn't like that. Tessa and we were just working late and it got too late to drive home safely. That's all it was." "Then why didn't you say that in the text?" I asked. "Why didn't you call? Why didn't you give me any explanation at all?" He opened his mouth, then closed it. Because he had no answer. Because we both knew what that text really meant. "Stay away from me, Adam," I said, turning back toward my car. "I mean it." That night, I called my friend Nathan. He'd been my friend since college, the kind of steady, reliable person who always picked up when you needed him. I told him everything. The text, the boxes, Diana's call, Adam showing up at work. When I finished, there was a long silence on the other end. Then Nathan said, "Amy, you need to file a police report. This is harassment." "It's just him trying to talk," I said, though even as I said it, I knew he was right. "Today it's talking," Nathan said firmly. "Tomorrow it's him showing up at your apartment. You need a paper trail. Trust me on this." The next morning, I went to the Denver Police Department and filed a report. The officer who took my statement, Officer Ruiz, was professional and kind. She listened without judgment as I explained everything. Showed her the texts, the photos of the boxes outside Tessa's door, the messages from Diana and Tessa. "You did the right thing coming in," she said. "We see this a lot. It usually escalates." Those words sent a chill down my spine. Usually escalates. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every sound in the apartment made me jump. The creak of the building settling, the hum of the elevator, footsteps in the hallway that might be neighbors or might be him. By the weekend, the harassment had intensified. Messages from unknown numbers, sometimes pleading, sometimes angry. "You can't just erase 3 years like this." "I gave you everything and this is how you repay me?" "You'll regret throwing away what we had." I screenshot every single one and forwarded them to Officer Ruiz. On Sunday afternoon, Diana called again. This time her tone was different. Colder. "Amy, this has gone far enough," she said. "Adam's family. Whatever issues you two are having, we work them out within the family. You don't involve the police. You don't humiliate him like this." I almost laughed at the absurdity. "Diana, he humiliated himself. I'm just protecting myself." "You're being vindictive," she said. "You're trying to destroy his reputation, his career. Do you know his boss found out about the police report? He could lose his job over this." "That's not my problem," I said. "He should have thought about consequences before he decided to spend the night at another woman's apartment." "It was innocent," she insisted, her voice rising. "Nothing happened between them." "Then why are you so desperate to defend him?" I asked. "If nothing happened, why does any of this matter?" She had no answer for that either. On Monday, Officer Ruiz called me. "Miss Carter, I'd like you to come in and file for a restraining order. Based on the messages you've been receiving and his workplace appearance, I think it's necessary." That afternoon, I sat in a small office at the courthouse filling out paperwork. Petitioner's name, Amy Carter. Respondent's name, Adam Mitchell. Reason for request, ongoing harassment, unwanted contact, fear for personal safety. It felt surreal, reducing 3 years of a relationship to legal checkboxes and official statements. The temporary restraining order was granted that same day. Adam had 72 hours to respond. I left the courthouse with the paperwork in my hand, feeling both relieved and terrified. That night, I installed security cameras outside my apartment door. 2 of them, front-facing, with motion detection and night vision. Nathan helped me set them up, testing the angles until we could see the entire hallway clearly. "You shouldn't have to live like this," he said quietly. "I know," I replied, "but until he gets the message, this is what it takes." Wednesday evening, I was home alone, trying to work on my laptop when my phone buzzed. Another unknown number. "You really think a piece of paper can stop me?" My blood went cold. I screenshot the message immediately and forwarded it to Officer Ruiz with a note. "He's contacted me again from a new number." Her response came within minutes. "Stay inside, lock your doors, patrol is on the way." I put my phone down and walked through the apartment, checking every window, every lock. The security camera feed was open on my tablet, showing the empty hallway outside. For now. Then at 9:37, I heard it. Footsteps in the hallway. Slow, heavy, deliberate. The motion detector on my camera triggered, and I watched the screen as a figure in a dark hoodie appeared. My heart hammered against my ribs as I watched him approach my door. The handle rattled. Once, twice. "Amy." His voice came through the door, hollow and unhinged. "I just want to talk." This was the voice I used to fall asleep listening to. The voice that once made me feel safe. Now it made my skin crawl. I didn't move, I didn't respond. "Amy," he said again, sharper this time. "Open the door before this gets worse." Through the peephole, I saw him clearly. Hoodie pulled up, eyes darting, one hand gripping something metallic. My throat closed. Then faintly, the distant wail of sirens. Adam froze. "Police, step away from the door." The command echoed down the hallway. He turned, panic flickering across his face. He tried to bolt toward the stairwell, but 2 officers rounded the corner, blocking his path. Everything happened in flashes. Commands shouted, hands raised, the thud of footsteps, the click of handcuffs. I exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. When Officer Ruiz knocked on my door minutes later, I opened it, shaking but steady. "He's in custody," she said gently. "We'll process him tonight. You're safe now." Those words, "you're safe now," felt surreal. I nodded, thanked her quietly, and closed the door. The apartment was silent again. I sat on the couch, letting the weight of everything wash over me. Safe. I was safe. The next morning, I went to the station to give my final statement. Officer Ruiz explained that Adam was facing multiple charges: harassment, attempted trespassing, violation of a restraining order. "He'll face real consequences this time," she said. When I walked out of the building, sunlight hit my face, and for the first time in months, I didn't feel the need to glance over my shoulder. The days that followed felt quieter. Peaceful in a way I'd forgotten peace could feel. I started seeing a therapist, someone who specialized in trauma and relationship abuse. I picked up running again, something I'd abandoned when Adam moved in. I let my world slowly rebuild itself around small joys. Morning coffee on my balcony, long walks through Washington Park, phone calls with Mia that ended in laughter instead of worry. A week later, I received a message from an unknown number. My chest tensed until I saw the name, Tessa. "I heard what happened. I'm sorry. You were right about him." I stared at the message for a long time before replying. "We were both fooled. Just be careful." Her response came quickly. "He's out of my life too. I promise." I didn't reply. Some things don't need answers. That evening, as I watered the plants on my balcony, I thought about everything that had happened. The fear, the anger, the exhaustion. But beneath it all, there was something else. Strength. Adam had tried to break me emotionally, socially, financially, but all he'd done was reveal how resilient I truly was. Before bed, I deleted his last message, cleared the evidence folder from my phone, and whispered to myself, "It's over." And this time, I believed it. The next morning, sunlight streamed through my window, soft and golden. My life was quiet again. Beautifully, defiantly quiet. And if there's one lesson I learned from it all, it's this. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Because second chances aren't kindness. They're invitations to repeat the same pain. If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more real stories about courage, survival, and finding strength when life tests you. Thank you for listening.
Under the shimmering glow of crystal chandeliers, I stood in the shadows of the Anderson Technology Gala, a solitary figure amidst Silicon Valley's glittering elite. The air buzzed with ambition, champagne flutes clinking like whispered promises of power. My sister Sophia, radiant at 32, held court near the center of the ballroom, her laughter a calculated melody that drew executives like moths to a flame. I sipped my sparkling water, watching her gesture with the confidence of someone who believed the world was hers to command. Little did she know, as she boasted of her $4 billion merger, that I held the secret that would unravel her triumph and our family's carefully polished legacy before the sun rose tomorrow. Sophia's voice carried over the hum of conversation, sharp and self-assured. The merger with Sterling Industries will redefine the tech landscape, she declared, her diamond bracelet catching the light. Anderson Tech will dominate the market. My team's been relentless for months. I suppressed a smile, knowing exactly how long her team had worked, and why their deal was built on sand. I leaned against an ornate pillar, my modest black dress a deliberate contrast to the designer gowns swirling around me. At 35, I'd learned the power of being underestimated, especially by those who shared my blood. "Gabriella, stop lurking," my mother's voice sliced through my thoughts, her tone laced with exasperation. She glided toward me, her diamond necklace glittering like her disapproval. "It's embarrassing." I stepped forward, bracing for the familiar script of these galas. Sophia's star would shine, while my choices would be dissected like a failed experiment. "Sophia was just telling us about the Sterling merger," my mother continued, her pride palpable. 32, and already vice president of acquisitions. We always knew she'd soar. "Unlike some," my father added, his gaze pinning me. At 58, Richard Anderson still commanded any room, his tailored tuxedo masking the strain of recent months at Anderson Tech. His words stung, but I'd grown accustomed to their barbs. I took another sip of water, my expression neutral. "Gabriella's still chasing that startup dream," Sophia said with a dismissive wave, her smirk as sharp as her stilettos. "What's it called again? Some software thing?" "Nexus Technologies," I replied softly. "We develop advanced cybersecurity solutions." "Right," Sophia drawled, twirling her champagne flute, tinkering with computers in a garage somewhere. She didn't know that somewhere was the top 5 floors of Silicon Valley's most prestigious office tower. I kept that truth locked away, just as I'd kept silent about so much over the past 3 years. My mother sighed, adjusting her necklace. "I don't understand why you waste your time with that small business nonsense. You could have been in management at Anderson Tech by now." I bit back a retort, thinking of the documents waiting in my office. Papers that would reveal who truly held the reins. "Speaking of management," my father interjected, his voice booming, "Sophia's merger is historic. The largest acquisition in Anderson Tech's history. Nearly $4 billion with contracts signed tomorrow morning." "Every major news outlet will be there," Sophia added, her eyes gleaming. "It's a done deal." I glanced at my watch, a simple timepiece that belied my ability to outbid every jewel in this room. "I should head out," I said, my tone even. "Early meeting tomorrow." Sophia's perfectly arched eyebrows rose. "Oh? Finally landed a real client?" Her laughter was a blade, swift and cutting. "Something like that," I murmured. "Don't let us keep you from your little startup," she said, waving me off. "Some of us have billion-dollar deals to close." As I turned to leave, my mother's stage whisper followed me. "She just works at some startup. It's rather embarrassing." I wove through the crowd, nodding politely to tech moguls who had no idea I was the elusive CEO they'd been clamoring to meet. Outside, the cool night air brushed my skin, and I allowed myself a small, private smile. Tomorrow, my family will learn that the daughter they dismissed as a failure had been building an empire right under their noses. And when the cameras rolled, it wouldn't be Sophia's name on the headlines. The gala's golden light faded as I slipped into the back of a modest sedan, leaving the Bentley I preferred tucked away in my garage. My driver, Thomas, glanced at me in the rearview mirror. "Home, Miss Collins?" he asked, using the name I'd adopted in the business world. I shook my head, pulling out my phone. "The office first, Thomas. I need to review everything for tomorrow." As we pulled away from the Anderson Technology Gala, the weight of my family's words, embarrassing, small time, failure, fell away like a discarded mask. In their world, I was Gabriella Anderson, the disappointing daughter. In mine, I was Catherine Collins, the architect of a $12 billion cybersecurity empire, and tomorrow, those worlds would collide. A message from Marcus, my chief operating officer, lit up my screen. All set for tomorrow. Anderson Tech has no idea what's coming. I smiled, the city's neon lights blurring past my window. For 3 years, I'd built Nexus Technologies in the shadows, using shell companies to shield my identity as founder and CEO. While my family mocked my garage startup, I'd created one of the most formidable cybersecurity firms in the world, operating across 20 countries. My phone buzzed again, a family group text from my mother. "Sophia's big day tomorrow. Watch the morning news for the Sterling merger signing." I closed my eyes, the irony sharp enough to cut. They had no idea the news would tell a very different story. The sedan glided to a stop outside Nexus's headquarters, a sleek tower that dominated Silicon Valley's skyline. I stepped out, my heels clicking against the marble lobby as I rode the private elevator to the 50th floor. My office was no garage. It was a corner suite with floor-to-ceiling windows, the city sprawling below like a chessboard I'd mastered. I settled at my desk, the documents for tomorrow's meeting spread before me. They detailed the truth about Sterling Industries, security breaches, outdated infrastructure, and a valuation far below the $4 billion Anderson Tech believed. My team had uncovered these flaws months ago, flaws that Sophia's due diligence had missed entirely. I flipped through the pages, each one a testament to the empire I'd built. 3 years ago, I'd walked away from Anderson Tech, my warnings about their vulnerabilities dismissed as jealousy. Now, those same vulnerabilities had led them to this moment, betting everything on a merger that didn't exist. Sterling wasn't signing with Anderson Tech tomorrow. They were signing with Nexus, a takeover I'd orchestrated in secret. My phone buzzed again, this time with a message from Sarah, my assistant. "Final reports are ready. Press release is prepped." I typed back, "Hold until I give the word." The office was quiet, save for the hum of the city below. I stood, crossing to the window, the lights of Silicon Valley twinkling like stars I'd aligned. My family thought they knew success, titles, galas, billion-dollar announcements. But I'd learned a different truth. Success was in the silent moves, the plans no one saw coming. Sophia's smug laughter echoed in my mind, her little startup jab, a reminder of why I'd kept my identity hidden. They hadn't just underestimated me, they'd stopped seeing me as family the moment I chose my path. Sarah appeared at the door, her tablet glowing. "Everything's in place for the 9 a.m. board meeting," she said, hesitating. "Are you sure about this, Gabriella? They're still your family." I turned, meeting her gaze. "They stopped treating me like family when they called my work embarrassing," I said, my voice steady. "Tomorrow, they'll see what a little startup can do." I returned to my desk, opening my laptop to review the press release that would announce Nexus's takeover. The words were sharp, precise, a declaration of power that would ripple through the tech world. Another message from Marcus. "Board members confirmed. Your family's in for a shock." I leaned back, the weight of 3 years, hiding, planning, enduring, settling into a quiet resolve. Tomorrow, I'd walk into Anderson Tech's conference room, not as Gabriella Anderson, the failure, but as Catherine Collins, the woman who'd outmaneuvered them all. The gala's champagne toasts and my mother's pearls would be forgotten in the wake of what I'd built. As the city skyline glowed beyond my window, I knew one thing for certain. The daughter they'd dismissed was about to rewrite their legacy. 3 years ago, the sterile glow of Anderson Tech's boardroom felt like a cage, its outdated servers humming faintly behind glass walls. I stood at 32, my heart pounding as I presented my report to my father, Richard, and his inner circle, Sophia smirking from her seat. My slides detailed vulnerabilities, aging infrastructure, unpatched systems, a cybersecurity disaster waiting to happen. We need to modernize, I urged, my voice steady despite the dismissive glances. If we don't, Anderson Tech will be a target. I believed then that facts could sway them, that my family would see the urgency. I was wrong. Richard leaned back, his fingers steepled. Gabriella, you're overreacting, he said, his tone dripping with condescension. These systems have served us for decades. Sophia chimed in, her voice syrupy with false pity. Maybe you're just jealous of my new role in acquisitions. Stick to your spreadsheets. The room chuckled, and my cheeks burned, not from shame, but from the realization that they'd never listen. I'd spent years at Anderson Tech, climbing from intern to strategist, only to be reduced to the other daughter. You're not seeing the bigger picture, I pressed, pointing to the projected losses. Millions if a breach occurred. Richard cut me off, his eyes cold. Leave the real decisions to those who understand them, Gabriella. Focus on something smaller. The words landed like a slap, echoing Sophia's smug grin. I gathered my files, my resolve hardening. They thought I was chasing their approval, but I was done begging for a seat at their table. That night, I walked out of Anderson Tech for the last time, the Silicon Valley skyline a silent witness. In my apartment, I sketched the blueprint for Nexus Technologies, a company that would outstrip its outdated empire. I'd build it in secret, using my savings and a network of allies who believed in my vision. My family's rejection wasn't a wound, it was fuel. As I typed the first lines of Nexus's mission statement, I vowed to create something they couldn't ignore, something that would force them to see me. 3 years later, standing in my Nexus office, I was no longer that dismissed strategist. I was Catherine Collins, and tomorrow I'd show them what smaller could achieve. Back in the present, the clock on my Nexus office wall ticked toward midnight, the Silicon Valley skyline a constellation of ambition beyond my windows. I sat at my desk, the weight of tomorrow's meeting settling into my bones. The documents before me were a map of my triumph, a security audit exposing Sterling Industries' crumbling defenses, a valuation slashing their worth by $2 billion, and a dossier dismantling Sophia's merger as a house of cards. My family thought they were signing a legacy-defining deal in 9, and I, Gabriella Anderson, their overlooked daughter, was about to rewrite their story. Sarah slipped into the room, her tablet casting a soft glow. The final reports are locked in, she said, her voice cautious. The press release is ready to go the moment you approve it. She hesitated, her eyes searching mine. Gabriella, are you sure? This will gut them. They're your family. I leaned back, the leather of my chair creaking softly. Family. The word tasted bitter, like the coffee cooling on my desk. They stopped being family when they laughed at my warnings, I said, my voice low but firm. When they called my work a hobby. This isn't revenge, Sarah, it's accountability. I opened the audit, my fingers tracing the highlighted flaws, backdoors in Sterling's code, unencrypted data, losses hidden by creative accounting. My team had spent months dissecting their systems, invisible to Anderson Tech's radar. Sophia's due diligence had skimmed the surface, dazzled by Sterling's inflated stock. I'd offered their CEO a choice weeks ago, public exposure or a quiet takeover by Nexus. He'd chosen survival, signing the papers in a discreet meeting while Sophia planned her victory lap. Marcus's message pinged on my laptop. Boards confirmed for 9 a.m. Your sister's already prepping her speech. I imagined Sophia, practicing her sound bites, oblivious to the storm I'd unleashed. I typed back, let her talk. It'll make the silence louder. Closing the laptop, I stood, crossing to the window. The city pulsed below, a machine I'd learned to steer while my family clung to their rusting gears. Nexus wasn't just a company, it was proof that success didn't need their applause. Sarah lingered, clutching her tablet. The media's already calling it the deal of the decade, she said. What happens when they find out it's yours? I turned, a faint smile tugging at my lips. They'll realize the quietest person in the room was the one they should have watched. I took the tablet, scanning the press release. The words were surgical, announcing Nexus's acquisition of Sterling and hinting at Anderson Tech's missteps. It was ready. "Send it at 10 a.m. tomorrow," I said, "after I've said my piece." As Sarah left, I sat again, my mind replaying the gala. Sophia's smirk, my mother's pearls, my father's disdain. 3 years of their voices had built this moment, each slight a brick in Nexus's foundation. Tomorrow, I'd walk into their conference room not as their failure, but as the woman who'd turned their empire inside out. The skyline glittered, a reminder that power wasn't in the loudest voice, but in the moves no one saw coming. The morning sun sliced through the glass walls of my private office across from Anderson Tech, casting long shadows over Silicon Valley's waking ambition. From my vantage point, I watched the conference room below buzz with camera crews and board members, a stage set for Sophia's triumph. At 35, I stood in a tailored Armani suit, no longer the modest facade I'd worn at the gala, but armor for the battle ahead. My phone buzzed with a final message from Marcus. "Your sister's mid-interview, showtime." I checked my watch, 9:45 a.m., and took a breath. The daughter they'd called embarrassing was about to claim their spotlight. I crossed the street, each step a bridge between the Gabriella Anderson they knew and the Catherine Collins I'd become. Marcus and Sarah flanked me, briefcases heavy with the truth that would shatter my family's illusions. Through Anderson Tech's lobby, I glimpsed Sophia, her voice bright as she spun her merger narrative for reporters. My father stood nearby, fixed his proud gaze on her, while my mother, adorned with her celebration pearls, beamed nearby. They had no idea their empire was moments from crumbling. The conference room doors swung open at 9:55 a.m., and silence fell like a guillotine as I entered, my team behind me. Sophia's interview halted, her words choking mid-sentence. "Gabriella?" she sputtered, her eyes wide. "What are you doing here? This is a private signing." I set my briefcase on the table, my movements deliberate. "Good morning," I said, my voice calm but resonant. "Shall we begin?" "Begin?" My father stood, his face reddening. "This is absurd. We're here for the Sterling merger. Where's their CEO?" I nodded to Sarah, who distributed folders to the stunned board. "Mr. Chen won't be joining us," I said. "He signed the final paperwork last night." Sophia's voice rose, shrill. "That's impossible. I have the merger agreement here." She clutched her documents as if they could anchor her unraveling reality. "That agreement is void," I said, watching her open the folder, her face draining of color. "Sterling Industries has accepted a different offer." My father's fists clenched. "What are you talking about? Who—" I cut him off, my tone steel. "Nexus Technologies, or more specifically, me." The room froze, cameras swiveling as reporters sensed a seismic shift. Sophia laughed, a brittle sound. "You? Your little startup couldn't possibly—" "That little startup is worth $12 billion, I said, clicking a remote to display Nexus's financials on the screen. "We're the largest cybersecurity firm in the country. While you mocked me, I built an empire." My mother's pearls clinked as she sank into her chair, whispering, "But your tiny office downtown—" I met her gaze. "A front. Nexus owns this building. And as of last night, we own Sterling Industries." "Why?" My father's voice cracked, betrayal in his eyes. I gestured to Sarah, who handed out more documents, Sterling's security breaches, hidden losses, and a valuation half what they'd believed. "You missed this," I said. "Your due diligence failed because you bet on Sophia's arrogance instead of facts. I gave Sterling's board a choice, exposure or acquisition. They chose us." Sophia's hands trembled, flipping through pages. "This will ruin us," she whispered. "No," I corrected. "This will save you. Nexus offers to acquire Anderson Tech at a fair price, before the market sees your vulnerabilities. You have 12 hours. The board leaned forward, their loyalty to my father wavering as they scanned the numbers. My mother turned to him, pleading, "Richard, do something!" But he was silent, his empire slipping through his fingers. I stood, surveying the room. "You called my work embarrassing," I said, my voice carrying to every corner. You dismissed my ideas, belittled my choices, and assumed my silence was weakness. Remember this moment. The daughter you ignored now holds your fate. Sophia's composure cracked, tears welling. My father avoided my gaze, his shoulders slumped. I walked to the door, pausing. 12 hours. Choose wisely. The sunset painted Silicon Valley gold as I stood in my Nexus office, the city a testament to what I'd built. The morning's chaos had settled into signatures and surrenders. Sophia, escorted from her office, had left in silence, her perfect facade shattered. My father handed over his keycard without a word, his legacy reduced to ink on a page. My mother's celebration pearls lay forgotten on the conference table, a relic of their fallen dynasty. I sipped water, not champagne, as Marcus entered, his expression soft. "Was it worth it, Gabriella?" he asked. "All those years in the shadows?" I turned to the window, the skyline a canvas of my choices. The gala's taunts, the years of condescension, had driven me, but they weren't the whole story. It wasn't about proving them wrong, I said. It was about proving what success could be, something meaningful, not just their titles and galas. Marcus nodded, leaving me to the quiet. The press release had gone out at 10 a.m., and by noon, headlines crowned Nexus the new titan of tech. Anderson Tech's stock stabilized under our offer, but the Anderson name was no longer its heart. A year later, Silicon Valley had shifted. Anderson Tech, under Nexus's leadership, embraced cutting-edge systems, its vulnerabilities were patched, and its future was bright. Sophia found a mid-level role at a smaller firm, her arrogance tempered by humility. My parents, their dynasty dissolved, retreated from the gala circuit, their pride a casualty of their blindness. I saw them once, at a charity event, their glances fleeting, no words exchanged. They'd learned what I'd known all along: family wasn't guaranteed by blood. Nexus grew, not for their approval, but for the thousands who relied on me, employees, clients, innovators. We launched new platforms, secured global contracts, and redefined cybersecurity. Each step was a reminder that success wasn't in the loudest voice, but in the work that endured. When asked about my path, I told the truth. Sometimes the best response to those who doubt you is to build something so undeniable, their mistake dawns too late to matter. My family's lesson was mine too, not to linger on their errors, but to create, to last, to lead. As I stood in my Nexus office a year after the takeover, the Silicon Valley skyline no longer felt like a battleground, but a horizon of possibilities. The triumph over my family's dismissal had been exhilarating, yet it left a quiet truth in its wake. Success wasn't the act of proving others wrong, but the courage to define it on my terms. I'd spent years fueled by their mockery, each slight a spark for Nexus's rise, but that fire had risked consuming me. Sophia's humiliation, my father's defeat, my mother's shock, they were not the victory I'd imagined. The lesson settled deep. True achievement lies not in settling scores, but in building something enduring, free from the need for external validation. I'd hidden as Catherine Collins to outmaneuver them, but in doing so, I'd nearly lost Gabriella, the woman who dreamed not of revenge, but of innovation. Now, as I led Nexus into new frontiers, I vowed to create for the sake of progress, not applause. My family's underestimation had pushed me to greatness, but it was my choice to let go of their shadows that freed me to soar.